All right, we're recording on Zoom, and I think we're live streaming into YouTube. Let me verify that really quick and make sure. Okay, good. And we're streaming on YouTube, Facebook over here, YouTube over here, and we're recording on Zoom. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another installment of Get a Clue in 52. I'm so embarrassed that I missed my own thing on Sunday night. And after I warm up a little bit, I'll explain why. But this is what we're doing. It's another installment of Get a Clue in 52. This is the book that I wrote way back in like 2019, but I started to market the book in 2020. I had the first edition, which looks something like this, the first edition of the book. And we started going every Sunday night, reading a tip every week. And I saw all the errors that I made. I actually made notes all year long and all the things that I wanted to correct. And I lost my parents that year. So I came out with a second edition. And this year, every single Sunday, except for last Sunday, every single Sunday at 8 p.m., I've been reading a tip from the book. Now, the book has 5 categories, 10 tips in each category, except for the marketing section right here, which has 12 tips. So that gave me 52, one for every week of the year, which makes it easy to market and promote and have fun and have a reason to be online every week, which is all great. And so the other categories are communication, networking, sales, marketing, as I've mentioned. But now at this stage of the year, we're in the home stretch. We're in the last couple of weeks of the year. So we're in the accountability section, the last section of the year. And tonight is tip number 47 overall, 47. So it was supposed to be Sunday night at 8 and I missed it. So let me just explain a little bit about why I missed Sunday night. On Friday, it was the 30-year anniversary of the first time I ever kissed my wife. And long story short, I had planned for a little 2-day getaway for us to Catalina Island. It was a little bit of business mixed in there because there's a hotelier out there that I met with her and her husband and talked a little bit about what's going on at the hotel and how I or my colleague Vipul might be able to help them. And that was really productive, but it was a really great excuse to get 2 nights out there. So we went out there on Sunday and I didn't know exactly what the agenda would be once we got out there. And lo and behold, it was like 9 minutes after 8 p.m. and we're at dinner with these hoteliers out there at Catalina Island. And I'm like, oh my God, my thing started 9 minutes ago. And that was it. So I hopped on and Patty, she was on as she always is. And she was still there waiting. God bless her. And normally, at least Patty and a great gentleman from South Africa, Charlie, the global connector, they come on religiously every Sunday night. So, as a matter of fact, as I speak, here comes Charlie right now to prove my point. Hello, Charlie. I'm going to bring you in just a minute, but I'm explaining to everybody really briefly why I missed. Oh, there you are. Let's see. Wait, there's Charlie. Anyway, why I missed Sunday
Very good,
night.
Jeff.
How are you? Yeah, so I'm
very well, thanks.
Good. I'm just finishing up the story that I missed Sunday night because I was really Sunday night specifically, I was in a little bit of work mode, then shifted to vacation mode with my wife, 30-year anniversary since our first kiss. But I had I like to feed 2 birds with 1 grain. There's another tip in this book in the networking section about synergy, and synergy is when you do one thing that serves more than one purpose. So I had a little bit of a business purpose to go out to Catalina, and I made it a personal purpose. And next thing I know, I was out of my element on an island at a great dinner after a really good 2-hour coaching session with my wife present. By the way, it was the first time I've ever done that kind of coaching with my wife right by my side. So that was kind of cool too, for her to see what I was doing, and there was value, and I just went ahead and let time get away. I figure after the 52 weeks last year and the 46 weeks this year, that's 98 consecutive Sundays. And I missed my own thing this past Sunday, but I'm not mad at myself. I laugh at myself. But I was with my wife, so it wasn't all that bad. I'll tell you that right now. I was with my wife on an island in the Pacific Ocean. So, all right. So here we are. Get a Clue in 52. We're making up for it tonight. It's Wednesday night. Feeling all right. We're on the eve of Thanksgiving here in America, and it's a big deal for families, and a lot of families get to see each other for the first time in 2 years with all the COVID stuff. So, I don't expect a lot of attendance. I don't expect a lot of interaction, but I still want to do what I committed to do, which is read one tip from my book every single week of the year. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to wait till the end of the session, but oh man, do you remember, Charlie, last week I teased that I'm working on a special guest, potential. Well, we confirmed we're solid, and you'll start to see promotions like as early as tonight for that. And hello, nice, Brian. One. I want to say hello to Brian, who's watching on the Facebook side. Welcome to Get a Clue in 52. This is a special Wednesday edition, but that's really code for I missed my own thing on Sunday night. But I don't want to skip a week or double up in a Sunday. Especially because I'm going to have a special guest this coming Sunday. I want really as much of the spotlight to be on her as possible. So excited about it. So I said, yeah, let's do this tip Wednesday night, get it on the books, get it recorded, get it, laid down and keep the string alive. And then this coming Sunday night, we'll do tip number 48. Now that's 47 tonight, 47 overall, but that means number 5 in the accountability section, which means I want to review the first 4 before I read the 5th tip in accountability, number 47 overall. And here we go. Accountability. If you have the second edition of Get a Clue in 52, this starts on page 101, having fun on page 101. Nothing is insurmountable when I'm hugging you accountable is the quote that you'll see there. And the first tip in this section is to look within. Don't do anything involving accountability at all. Don't do anything involving accountability unless and until you're willing to look within first. If you've looked within and you're honest about what's going on when it comes to your own accountability, then you might be okay talking about accountability elsewhere. But usually you're not okay at all talking about accountability elsewhere without permission. And that's tonight's tip. But first of all, tip number 1 is to look within. All right. So then tip number 2 is to understand integrity. Oh boy, this is like one of my favorite tips in the whole book. Charlie, how many of these tips do I say that about? All of them. Right. Yeah, all of them. They're all my favorite. It's like somebody asked me, what's your favorite ice cream? I say, whichever one I'm eating. Anyway, I digress. Whichever one I'm dealing with, that's the favorite, being present-minded. But tip number 2 is my favorite because it's really a preview of the integrity game. And I'm circling this little white circle here because this shows that in the second edition of the book, I have a preview chapter for the book I'm working on now that I want to release no later than February 1st. I'm hoping to get it out in January. The sooner the better. We're almost done. It's called The Integrity Game. And this tip lays out a 10-point model of integrity. And I wrote a whole book around this one tip. And there's a preview chapter for it in this book at the end of the book. And the actual book is coming out. Wow, am I excited about integrity? And that's all I'm going to say about it, because this is like one of the heaviest chapters in the whole book. It's not just a 10-point model of integrity, but there's 10 sets of questions that challenge you to look within, look beyond, and and lay out a model, a vertebrae, a central nervous system of what you can be held accountable to. We're in the accountability section, and integrity is a matter of accountability. Accountability is a matter of integrity. They are synonymous. All right, mic drop, kerplunk. There we go. Tip number 3 is smart goal setting. So we started with looking within, then we want to understand integrity, and goal setting is such an important part of productivity, personal, professional growth, that it gets its own point on the 10-point model. I mean, it's one of the 10 points on the 10-point model, but it gets its own tip in the book. Goal setting is that important. And what this tip talks about is the difference between SMART, smart goal setting, and SMAART, smart goal setting. So I added an A, changed the R with good reason, and you can read about it in tip number 3. Then tip number 4, last week or week and a half ago now, tip number 4 was to look outside. So follow this. We look inside, we understand integrity, we set our goals. Now it's time to look outside for external accountability sources. It's so funny to me when people say, well, I hold myself accountable. And they say, who holds you accountable? Well, I hold myself accountable. Or, well, my job holds me accountable. What do you mean your job? Who's the person that confronts you and asks you? Anyway, there's gotta, you can get pretty far holding yourself accountable if you get trained in accountability and learn accountability. But just because you can pronounce it doesn't mean you know how to do it for yourself or others. Just because you can pronounce the word or understand its meaning doesn't mean you know how to deliver it for yourself or others, right? So I train people in accountability. I am trained in accountability. Hello, Neil. I see you out there watching on Facebook. It's nice to see you. Get a Clue in 52. We are in tip number 5 in the accountability section, tip number 47 overall. And I've reviewed the first 4 tips, which is to look within before you do anything regarding accountability, then understand integrity. And I have a 10-point model. Then really focus in, drill down on your goal setting, which is the 4th point on my 10-point model. Once you've established your goals, specific, measurable, achievable goals that you know that you have to change behavior in order to achieve, but you're so motivated with good reason that you're willing to change that behavior, willing to be held accountable, willing to be vulnerable, willing to embrace the growing pain, right? Once you set those goals, now it's time to look outside for an accountability source. That's tip number 4. Look outside. So do you understand the symmetry? Look inside, understand integrity, set goals, now look outside. Okay, so as we shift now into tip number 5, which is the subject of tonight's tip reading on page number 116 in your copy of Get a Clue in 52 second edition. The tip is to secure permission. Now I'll read it word for word, and then we'll elaborate on it if and as we need to. Here we go. I hope I've set the stage well enough. I hope you're with me. It's 8:11 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday night in the makeup session that I was supposed to do Sunday night. So I'm really grateful, Charlie, that you're here with me on the Zoom side, and to Brian and to Brian and Nilesh and anybody else out there that's watching on the Facebook side. If you want to come into the Zoom side and have live interaction after I read this tip, then just type in www.tinyurl.com/get-a-clue. tinyurl.com/get-a-clue. Charlie, you've been really good at the past about finding these things and typing the URL in. Thank you so much if you want to do that and invite anybody else into the session. Remember, we are on the eve of Thanksgiving, so it's kind of funny. Like, I don't expect people to come on board tonight because you're with family. And if you need a break from your family, come on board. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's an American joke. We need breaks from our family. All right, here we go. All right, tip number 5. Charlie, I didn't see you laughing at that one. What's going on, Charlie? All right, now you're laughing. Sorry. Thank you. I said
been preoccupied.
Either you're not coming on board because you're with your family, or hey, you need a break for your family? Come on board. Anyway, I'm sorry. I told the joke twice. I should have done that. All right. Love your family at all times. All right, here we go. All right, tip number 5, secure permission. In all seriousness, I consider permission to be one of the top 3 requirements for effective accountability. One of the laws of physics refers to the equal and opposite reaction to every action. Said another way, anything that feels pressed upon will press back. There's an exercise I learned from Tony Robbins that illustrates this point. Put your hands together, palm to palm. On the count of 3, press as hard as you can onto your weaker hand with your stronger hand. Don't cheat. Wait until I count to 3. Are you ready? All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Press as hard as you can. Go harder. I'm still reading word for word, by the way. Harder. Are your hands still in front of or nearly in front of your face? I didn't say press back, Charlie, right? Charlie, you did this last year with me and you're still, all right, I'm sorry, all right? So I didn't say, let me go back to the word for word. I didn't say press back. Do you understand? You actively sent a message to your stronger hand to press, but do you recall telling your other hand to resist? No, resistance was automatic. The laws of physics tell us that the reaction will be equal and opposite, but it fails to highlight the automatic part. It's automatic to press back when pressed upon. Charlie, Kluby snack. That's it right there. It's automatic to press back when pressed upon. For those of you watching for the first time, Charlie comes on every week and he asks, hey, let's get the Kluby snack this week. And sometimes it's right there. Sometimes we come up with it on the spot, but that's it, right? That's one right there. It is automatic to press back when pressed upon. Now there's a ... that you could put after that, and all kinds of wisdom can emerge from that, right? Like, well, there's all kinds of things we could say after that, but I think it's wise enough to just lead with, it is automatic to press back when pressed upon. So that means if you're not pressing back when pressed upon, you're suppressing something that's automatic. And when you are, you're giving in to what's automatic. And I don't know what's good or bad. Context will determine what's right or wrong or good or bad or strategic or destructive, right? But bottom line is it's automatic no matter what. Productive or unproductive, it's automatic. We have to understand the automatic nature of it. I'm digressing from the word for word. Here we go. Back to the word for word. When it comes to accountability, you have to expect, anticipate, plan for, prepare for, and be skilled at dealing with this automatic equal and opposite reaction to your efforts to hold people accountable, to your actions of confrontation. Expect pushback unless permission is secured first. And I'm going to stop reading word for word. I'm going to tell you that even when permission is secured, you should still expect pushback. I'm going to tell you right now without naming the person, and I hope to God the person's watching and sees that I'm not going to name the person. And nobody has access to my calendar and knows who I coached today. But I can tell you right now, this tip is so relevant. I've got permission. I have been paid to coach somebody that I was working with for over 2.5 hours today. And they were still pushing back, still meeting my efforts to hold them accountable with equal and opposite reaction. And there was so much, what about you, coach? What about you, coach? What about you, coach? And how much time the person was spending on me explaining to them that they are paying me to coach them. I am not paying them to coach me. If they want to spend their time on what about you, coach, we can do that, but I have to say that it will be a waste of your time. I would rather pay you if you want to coach me. But right now, can we still stay focused on you? I mean, I had to have this conversation because pushback is automatic. Does that make sense? It's automatic. Now, that the person was doing it wasn't a bad thing. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. Doesn't mean they're failing or faulting or anything like it. They're just being a human being, automatically pushing back on the level of accountability that I bring to the sessions. I hope you guys understand on some level what I'm talking about here. So I'll reread this again. When it comes to accountability, you have to expect, anticipate, plan for, prepare for, and be skilled at dealing with this automatic equal and opposite reaction to your efforts to hold people accountable, to your actions of confrontation. Expect pushback unless permission is secured first. Now, and if I was going to rewrite a third edition of this, I'd say even when permission is secured first, because it's automatic. Permission is a conscious thing. I give you permission, but pushback is an instinctual thing. Charlie, you got it?
Yeah.
I'm going to say it again. It sounds so good when it comes out of my mouth. Permission, giving permission is an intellectual thing. Giving pushback is an instinctual thing. Who do you think is going to win? The intellectual or the instinctual? Without support, without help, without maturation, without coaching, without guide rails, on and on and on and on. So it's an automatic reaction to confrontation, to push back. And a really good accountability coach is skilled at recognizing that, dealing with that, receiving that without judging the person for doing, you understand what I'm getting at here. It's a lot of people can pronounce accountability, but that doesn't mean they know how to deliver it for themselves or for others. And this is what I'm trying to communicate. Secure permission, even when you have permission. It's hard, but almost impossible without permission. You understand what I'm getting at here? All right. So let me continue reading and we're almost done here. When you have permission to confront, permission to account, permission to suggest, permission to explain, permission to tell a story, etc. When you have that permission, your efforts are part of that permission versus counter to it. Your accountability is an extension of permission versus a provocation of pushback. Charlie, I'm slowing down for good reason here, right? I'll read the last sentence again. Your accountability is an extension of permission versus a provocation of pushback. Josue, let me see you. I recognize you coming on board. We're in another installment of Get a Clue in 52. Tip number 47 overall. Tip number 5 in the accountability section. This is secure permission. That's what tip number 5 is. I don't recommend you endeavor to hold anybody accountable without getting their permission first. And even when you get their permission, still expect the automatic pushback that is inherent in the laws of physics and human nature and everything else. Anything pushed upon will push back. Anything, every action creates equal and opposite reaction. So expect a lot of, what about you, coach? What about you, coach? What about you, coach? Or what about you, leader? What about you, supervisor? What about you, person of authority? What about you, whatever? When you're trying to hold somebody accountable, rather than receiving that, the first instinct is going to want to be to push back. It's a mature, evolved, coachable person that can receive your efforts of accountability and act and save themselves time. It's a challenge when there's resistance and pushback and so forth. So we have to anticipate it. We have to expect it. We have to have techniques for dealing with it. We tools of confrontation, which I believe is, you guessed it, 2 weeks from now or a week and a half from now, tip number 7, tools of confrontation. So if you want to read ahead and get a clue in 52 and be ready for this coming Sunday or next Sunday, read about authoring state of mind, which is this coming Sunday. Read about tools of confrontation, which is coming a week from this Sunday. But tonight we're talking about securing permission and how much easier accountability is when you've got overt, communicated, expressed permission. I can tell you guys right now, and I could screen share and show you the type of commitments that I ask people to initial before I ever let them enroll in coaching with me. And it's very rarely that I have to remind people of these commitments, but they are the things that I ask people to initial, sign off on, and sign on the dotted line. And I'm willing to screen share it and show you guys if you want to see it. And it comes down to this getting permission, getting agreement, making sure people are ready to hold themselves 100% accountable to all of their results rather than what about you, coach, and all of that. So I'm not going to digress too much. I don't think I'm finished reading the tip even. So let me finish reading the tip word for word. And here we go. Last paragraph. Get a Clue's coaching leadership training teaches you dozens of techniques to secure permission you need to avoid the pushback that prevents true accountability. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to get off this headset. Charlie, I'm going to ask you to mic test and sound check with me to make sure that we're still rolling. Can you hear me, Charlie?
Yes, absolutely. I can hear you very clearly, Coach.
Yeah. How about now?
That's 100%. You're back again.
Good. I can hear you as well. And let's take Facebook and bring them to you. Let's do that swap right there. All right. So here we go. We're going to get a clue in 52. And I just want to do this. I just want to let you guys in test. That's fine. I'm going to do this. I'm going to show you guys right now, right? Well, hang on a second. Let me get out of this real quick. How can I do this in a different way? Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. It's so funny, as irony would have it. All right. I'm going to pause on that. Charlie, let me ask you if there's any questions. I was going to show you commitments that I ask people to initial on the securing permission thing, but I can't do that gracefully without putting more information than I want to put on the internet. So anyway, let's talk about it, man. Any questions or comments? Charlie, you've taken the effort to join me live on Zoom. What do you have for us?
Yeah, thank you, Coach Jeff. Again, we'll do whatever it takes to get on. Last week, I was wondering, why can't we connect? But then Patty sent me a message. But now, the securing permission, and some people, I guess, why are you needing permission from me to hold you accountable? Why would they want
say it again? Yes, starting. Why are you needing? Who would ask that?
Like somebody who says to them, okay, I'm going to be helping you do A, B, C, right? But you are going to be held accountable, but I would like permission from you to hold you accountable that you do it. So again, the ego defense comes in, the pushback is, why would you want to be holding me accountable? And it goes back to like the part where you says the person that you coached was going, what about you, coach? It's kind of saying, well, if you are saying to me that I'm doing this wrong, what about you? Because that's where the defense and the pushback comes.
Yeah. So is there a question or is it a comment?
Yeah, it's the question is less about why would somebody, though we understand the pushback, would it be ego defense first thing? And also not wanting to acknowledge, to says, again, we go to look inside that, oh, damn, I didn't really realize that, but it's acknowledging and being transparent and vulnerable enough to says, okay, you have a point there. I have to work on this. The defense rather, yes, continue.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if you're just commenting, I'm listening. Is that a question that I'm answering, or am I just commenting on top of your comment?
Commenting, and the question is, why would someone react in that way? What would actually be the internal triggers that trigger that?
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I want. Thank you for that, Charlie. That's what I wanted the question for me. Ready? Why would somebody react that way? Well, here's the answer. Are you ready? Yeah. It's multi-determined. There's more than one reason why somebody would react that way. Let me suggest possibilities. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
One of them is ego defense, like you mentioned. It's another tip in the book, right? It's a barrier to critical thinking. It's a barrier to listening and loving. Ego defense. It's when it's like emotional fight or flight response, right?
Yeah.
Like I've explained this before. If I hear a buzzing by my ear, I'm just going to swat at it and duck, even if it's a fly and not a bee. So we're hardwired to protect ourselves physically from any perceived physical danger, but we'll end up like, you've heard me talk about this before. I walk into a spider web in my face, I freak out. And 10 minutes later, after I've, washed up and gotten a cloth and wiped it on myself, and I know that there's no spider or web on me, if the wind blows my hair onto my ear, I start freaking out all over again. So that same level of hardwired to protect ourselves, where we're swatting at and running from our own hair.
Yeah.
Okay. That happens emotionally with information. So if a lot in accountability, some people know that I'm going to hold them accountable. I'm going to say, did you do it or not? And if they didn't do what they said they were going to do, if they aren't as productive as they thought they were, then one way to defend an ego is to push back. You follow? So some people create smoke and mirrors, or push back, or so there's two ways to defend yourself. You either fight or you fight. So when in coaching, you either don't show up to your coaching session at all, or when you show up to your coaching session, you say, well, what about you, coach? Are you saying this isn't working for me, or why would you ask me that? Instead of just being trusting of the coaching session, right? Something's out of integrity. So here's the Klubi snack. You've written this down before. You don't have to write it down again. You've written it down before. Accountability will always feel like attack when you're not ready to accept the consequences of your behavior. And so some people would rather say, play with a what about you, coach game and pick a fight, right? Because then they can't just talk about what they need to do and did they do it or not.
It's kind of getting just snaking out of the current situation and just being very slippery about it.
So ego defense is one thing, right? Another thing might be emotional addiction, right? Some people are addicted to experiencing certain emotions, and they will make the meaning of every situation they possibly can in the direction that will give them those emotions. Does this make sense?
Explain the emotional addiction to me. I'm getting to the addiction part. How does one become addicted? And what I can think about is maybe someone who's in a bad relationship and just keeps going back and stays in that relationship.
Yeah, it's not the relationship they're addicted to. It's the emotion they experience in that relationship that they're addicted to.
Okay.
You're right. The relationship usually is patterned after some version of love they experienced as a kid. You follow? Now,
Yes.
just to explain it briefly, and this is another tip for another time, I'm quite sure, right? But to explain it very briefly, emotional addiction is the same thing as any chemical addiction. Usually when we think of addiction, we think of chemicals outside of the body that we put in. We think of heroin, nicotine, cocaine, alcohol, sugar, whatever, right? We think about, or we think about gambling addiction. This, when we starts to get an emotion, we think about gambling addiction, but we think it's gambling that people are addicted to. It's not. It's the emotion of suspense that they're addicted to. Right? They're addicted to suspense. So the person that goes gambling because they love suspense is the same person that binge watches a series on Netflix because of the cliffhanger at the end to get them to the next. It's the same high. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's vehicles that feed our addictions, but the point is, addiction is when enough of the chemicals get into the cells of your body. They infuse the cells with themselves. So the nucleus of the cell is operating with whatever the chemical is. And then when the cell divides, like a crack baby, it wants the chemicals that the mother had. So the cell, as a unit of consciousness, will send a signal up to the brain and saying, hey, give me this chemical I'm craving. So the essence of craving, right, is at the cellular level. And what the cells do, the cells in our body say, hey, I want this particular chemical that I was born with. Right? Do you understand? So then the cells send a signal up to the brain and say, hey, will you rationalize something? Will you interpret something? Will you make meaning of something that will give me what I want? So my mom was addicted to fear. That was the emotion that she had to have running through her veins at all times. And so I could show up at her doorstep with a birthday cake and instead of saying, oh, Jeffrey, nice to see you. Thank you for this wonderful cake. She has no ability to do that. The cellular level addiction to fear will have her say, who said I wanted a cake? Are you trying to get me fat? And so she has to interpret life in a way that that creates the emotion. So said another way, emotions are chemicals. Okay. Emotions are chemicals. Like, let me ask you a question, Charlie, real quick. Does anger feel different than sadness?
Actually,
they're both
because
negative.
sometimes, yeah.
But does anger feel different? When you're angry, doesn't it feel different than sadness?
Yes, because anger, there's a little bit of a different reaction to intensity. Yeah.
Anger
and
has
sadness, you kind of.
It has a different vibration energetically, but why does it feel different, right? Watch this. Or does hopeful feel different than pleased? Yeah. One has an anticipation, one has a gratification.
Yes.
You follow? You're right. Yes. They're both positive. Hopeful is positive and pleased is positive, but they feel
the vibration and the energy.
You paid attention, you see that it feels different. Now, why does it feel different? Why do we call emotions feelings? Because we can feel them. Okay. Now, why does it feel different? You want to know why it feels different? Here's why. The same reason a peanut butter and jelly sandwich feels different and tastes different than a ham and cheese sandwich, different ingredients.
Yeah. They're both sandwiches, they're both serving basically the same purpose, to feed you, to fill you, sustain you. But
they're not serving the same purpose. One is to give you a taste of sweet and the other is to give you a taste of protein. Ham and cheese sandwich is about protein and peanut butter and jelly is about protein and sweets, sweet taste. They're both emotions and they both feed you. But after it gets down, they separate quite a bit, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Different ingredients. In one, there's ham, cheese, and bread. In the other, there's peanut butter and jelly and bread. So therefore, they're going to taste and feel different. I say that analogy because the chemicals associated with hopeful feel different than the chemicals associated with gratified. The chemicals associated with anger feel different than the chemicals associated with sadness. The chemicals associated with guilt feel different than the chemicals associated with hopeless, powerless, vengeful feels different than powerless. Does this make sense?
Got you. Got
And
you. I was smiling there because
well, first
you
of all,
went in.
just on surface, there's different letters in the words.
Yeah.
And
I was smiling there. I was smiling there because you were going into the Klu style of one word and breaking it into another 14 other words. So I just love it when you do that.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I'm trying to answer your question. What's emotional addiction? Basically, emotional addiction is understanding, first of all, that chemicals are emotions, and all the different emotions that we experience are different because there's different ingredients in them.
Got you.
And then if we experience a certain emotion for a long amount of time, the emotions are created in the hypothalamus, and like bullets in a gun or arrows in a quiver, you know what I mean? Or shrapnel in a bomb, right? Once we experience an emotion for a certain amount of time, like 15, 30, 60 seconds, it gets out of our head and goes into our system and starts bombarding, like keys in a lock or syringe in a vein into our cells. And if emotion with certain chemical combination docks on our cell, infuses that cell with itself, and then the cell divides, it's going to have a craving for the chemicals in the mother cell. So the craving is when it sends a message back up to the brain. Hey, you want this, don't you? Hey, wouldn't it be cool if you did that? Hey, nobody's going to find out. Hey, it's okay. Hey, you're young and you have all this rationale. Next thing you know, you're interpreting life in a way that makes you a victim, or you're interpreting life in a way that makes you helpless, or you're interpreting life that, do you understand what I'm getting at? So
I got you.
It's not the relationship itself. But if somebody grew up, like, let's say somebody, I'm just gonna make this up. Let's say somebody was the fifth child in a family.
Yeah.
Right? Fifth child in the family. And the parents retired with the first four. Right? You know what I'm saying?
Got you.
Right? Now, you might believe when you're early in age that you are being neglected by your parents, right? Neglect. Hey, what about me? What about me? What about me? The older kids are getting older. They want to hang out with their friends and drive cars, and the younger kid, blah, 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 blah. So if you're a kid and you see your parents not paying attention to you and your siblings not paying attention to you, are you with me? You might develop a heavy dose of the emotion of neglect. So then the cells in your body might actually start craving that emotion because that's what they're used to. The cells don't know that it does you no good to feel and believe that you're neglected.
And then your reaction to somebody giving you attention is like, don't stop bothering me kind of stuff, because you want to be not being taken or acknowledged.
Oh yeah, well you start saying things like, I prefer to be alone so that you can be neglected to the punch. I can keep going. You understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
So either way, you either overcompensate for avoiding it or you invite it, but that's what addiction is. It's something you can't control. So emotional addiction is being unable to control the emotions we constantly arrive at through our meaning making, through our decisions, through our craving, not checking our cravings, not developing habits and patterns that create. Now, listen, we can create positive addictions. That's why I used hopeful and gratified. You follow?
Please, happy.
What do you think I'm addicted to? You think I'm addicted to jovial?
Yeah.
Do you think I'm addicted to benevolent? Do you think I'm addicted to compassionate? Or, there's a lot of positive addictions that I've worked to develop in myself so that I always see humor in the world. I always see love in the world. I always see a room for a hug in the world. I met O.J. Simpson and I was still loving and still gave him a hug. When a lot of other people would see that and find it as a reason to, you know what I mean? Based on the emotions they're addicted to, that's going to determine the meaning they make of that. But I'm addicted to jovial, compassion, helping others. So confronted with OJ, I gave him a hug instead of saying, you murderer, you move on, whatever. But what I'm saying? Emotional addiction will determine the meaning that you make of your situ. It'll determine what you attract into your life. It'll determine how you interpret the world and so many other things. I hope that's a good enough answer to your question.
Absolutely, Coach.
839 in another installment of Get a Clue in 52. And I want to say hello. Thanks again to Brian and Nilesh and Josue. those that I can see that are coming up, that are watching on the Facebook side. Thank you, Charlie, for joining me on the Zoom side. And anybody watching a recording of this in the future, we are streaming to my YouTube channel, Watch, Get a Clue, all one word, Watch, Get a Clue. And it's tip number 47 overall, number 5 in the accountability section. And I am ready to preview and announce this week's, this Sunday's special guest. But before I do that, I found a way. I just want to let everybody know I did find a way to bring this up in a John Doe kind of way. Up here, it's John Doe, nobody specific. But these are the commitments. These are the things that I ask people to initial when they sign up for coaching. I commit 100% to the process. I commit to being on time and focused. I commit to being coachable and trusting the coaching agenda. I commit to communicating fully, honestly, and holding nothing back. I commit to continue the process, especially when I'm confronted and I challenge that. I accept that being challenged to be my best is what I'm paying for. I commit to having and sharing a result that I want from every session. I commit to following the equation, motivation plus accountability equals results. I commit to being 100% accountable to the policies and procedures of scheduling. I commit to be 100% responsible for my own results. And I agree to indemnify and hold harmless, get a clue out of the course of me executing my own life and responsibilities, etc. So all of this is about getting permission and getting people to initial and acknowledge that if they want me to be their coach, they're giving me permission to hold them accountable, to run them through a process, and to structure that process in a way that I'm the expert. When it comes to coaching, I'm the expert. I may coach an architect. I may coach a lawyer. I may coach a graphic designer, and they all know what they do better than I do, but nobody on this planet knows coaching better than I do, in my opinion. So when it comes to coaching, I know what I'm doing. And if you give me permission and you trust the agenda, we're going to get further than we will if you don't. If you're resisting and that equal and opposite reaction, and I'm trained in how to deal with that, I anticipate it coming. And even though I have it in my agreement and I get you to sign off on it and on, you're still going to do it because you're a human being. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the more overt and the more clear I can be about the permission required to hold people accountable because of the automatic pushback and the ego defense and the emotional addictions and the smoke and mirrors and the slippery slidey, the better. This work is not for weak people. You got to stay committed to people. You got to love people enough to hang in there with them through all of it. You understand? And that's what we're going to communicate tonight and get a clue in 52.
Just something has just come to mind in what you were mentioning and listing the industries and people that you coach. Would another part of it be that you are coaching somebody that is an expert in one area and you might have identified or given a task related to that, and they do not complete the task or fulfill the task or whatever it was, and when you hold them accountable, would come back and says, but you are not a mechanic or you are not an attorney, and give you a whole lot of excuses.
No. Let me cut you off right there. First of all, I would never give somebody a task to do. That's not how coaching works. We discuss possible strategies, and the person needs to commit to what they commit to. So I never give somebody a task.
Maybe I used the wrong term.
It's okay. I understand what you're saying. Let me finish, right? The scenario that you are playing out is, I just got to cut it off and not let you go down the road because it wouldn't happen that way. Do you follow?
Got you.
And let me give you a better answer. You understand? When I'm training coaches, Charlie,
yes, coach.
When I'm training coaches, one of the things that I teach coaches that I'm training or leaders that I'm training is posture. And there's different levels of posture. There's inferior posture, there's equal posture, and there's superior posture. And you as the coach need to know when to take which and when to shift from one to the other. And it's important because you need to keep, it's a martial artistry thing. It's, I'm not trying to beat my clients, but if they're trying to push back on me and if they're trying to beat me rather than help themselves, I need to get them off balance. They can't beat me if they're off balance. And if they want to beat me, they're misguided, right? But a lot of people will try to beat the coach rather than just look within and do what they need to do, And so what I'm getting at is I'll never say, hey, you are an expert in this area that I'm not an expert in, so let me give you homework in that area. That, first of all, would never happen. It would sound more like this. You tell me what you need to do in order to succeed. It would sound more like this. What are you putting off that you know you need to do? And I would let them tell me what they know. And it's my job to hold them accountable. So the rest of the area that you played out isn't realistic. It wouldn't happen.
It's more them not having, again, you've identified what they've put off and you've worked on a strategy, but then they haven't fulfilled it. Okay. Now with the next session,
so regardless of whose expertise and regardless of the strategy and regardless of what they've commit to, what you're now asking about is, what do you do when they commit to something and they show up and they have not done it?
Yes, but now they kind of, that defense and that, or the defense comes in and, but you're not an attorney, you don't understand what the part of the excuses.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know,
so again, you got to get into that posture situation where, but listen, hold on. This is not where we are now, because now they want to bully you from the part that they are the expert or the authority in whatever they're doing. And then when it comes that, but you're not an attorney, you don't understand what's going on there, is one thing to justify not. I got you. I got it now. I'm understanding it now.
Yeah. So the idea is this, right? All of that's going to happen. You just imagine it in your head. You know all of that happens or is capable of happening. So my point is that the point of tonight's tip is all of that goes down. The potential for all of that is reduced if you're overt and constant about securing permission to hold them accountable. They have way less stamina or energy to do the "what about you, coach?" but I'm the expert, but you don't know. It's like, look, here's you can role play that, say, but you don't know what it's like to be an attorney. Yeah, but I do know what agreement you signed, and you gave me permission to ask you, did you do your shit or not?
Yes. Yeah, so it's not about you being the expert.
I'll just say you're right. I don't know what it's like to be an attorney, and you don't know what it's like to be an accountability coach. And when you answer my question, instead of saying, "What about you, coach?" will actually make more progress for you.
Exactly. Got you. That's it.
I mean, you have
100%.
to. My point is, I'm giving you a little bit of a preview, right? Without giving too much. Again, this is my free thing that I do and Get A Klu in 52. I charge people to train them how to be a good coach, Charlie. I have coaches training, and group mentoring and all of that. But my point is, you can't just say secure permission, and say, "Oh, I understand what he means." You need, to be able to do what I just did in a heartbeat like that. You need years and years and years and years.
Years of training,
training and practice, training and practice, training and practice, training and practice. So of course you have to know by now, Charlie, that I didn't just write a book to write a book. I'm actually hoping that people want me to teach them accountability. Do you understand how this is working?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I want you and everybody on the planet to enroll in my coaching and leadership training. And I want to teach the world how to do a better job holding themselves and others accountable. But guess what? I'm not going to be calling it Get A Klu anymore. I'm still going to do Get A Klu in 52 books just because I like it. But the whole thing is shifting to the integrity game. The new brand is the integrity game. Right? The integrity. We're going to be playing the integrity game from now on. She's like, well, you don't know what it's like to be a lawyer. Yeah, but we're playing the integrity game, we're not playing the "what about you" game. We're playing the integrity game.
Yeah.
We're not playing the "what about you" game. We're playing the integrity game.
Yeah.
And the integrity game is you either did what you said you were going to do or you didn't. And the integrity game is information that you gave me to hold you accountable to that. And if we can get rid of the personal attacks and the smoke and mirrors, we'll just say yes or no, and we'll decommit or recommit, and we'll move on. It doesn't have to be drama here, but there's going to be a drama when all that pushback is not just a function of the equal and opposite reaction, but it's also a function of I didn't do what I said I was going to do, or I'm addicted to an emotion and I'm going to use our coaching session to give myself that emotion. And I have to be ready for all of that in order to help people.
Absolutely. 100%.
And you might understand what I just said, but if I said, all right, go do that for others right now, you do, there's more training and practice required.
And practice to do it, yeah.
And I don't know who else in the world is promoting accountability the way I am, who's trying to teach and encourage people to learn accountability the way that I'm encouraging it. Right? To my own detriment sometimes. People hate me, or they want to punch me in the nose, or they frustrate them beyond belief, or I exhaust them. It's like, yeah, well, that's how much I love you. I'm not exhausted. I'm still loving you. If you want to give up, go ahead, but I'm not giving up on you.
Yeah.
And it's a lonely life sometimes, but that's why I joke around so much. To offset how difficult the work I do is sometimes.
Yeah.
But I digress. Hey, Nikki, I see you coming in on the Facebook side. Just to reset, it's 8:49 p.m. Get a Clue in 52. We've been dissecting and digressing and discussing and breaking apart tip number 47 overall, tip number 5 in the accountability section. The tip is to secure permission. Right. So just to reset and review, tip number 1 is look within. Don't do anything regarding accountability until you look within. Tip number 2 is to understand integrity. Tip number 3 is to zoom in on that 4th point in the model, which is goal setting, and establish your goals. Then tip number 4 is to look outside. Once you have goals, it's time to get an external accountability source. And then tip number 5 is secure permission. I'm really speaking in this tip to accountability providers, not accountability seekers. Although if you're a seeker of accountability, you have to understand that you need to give permission to somebody else to account for your behavior, right? You can't say, help me, but don't confront me. You can't say, help me, but don't call me on my stuff. You can't say, help me, but don't ask me if I did what I said I was going to do. You can't do that. So if you're an accountability seeker, you've got to give permission. If you're an accountability provider, you've got to secure permission. And there's different mindset stuff that's required to break through on each side. So Monique, thanks for joining and allowing me to do that reset. Get a Clue in 52. Charlie, thank you for joining me on the Zoom side. I want to invite
You're welcome, Coach.
Anybody on Facebook, come on live with us and hang out and ask a question. Join the conversation. It's just me on a Sunday night. There's no smoke, there's no mirrors, there's no lights, there's no makeup, there's no editing, there's no production value, that's for sure, other than me fumbling around with my phone and my Zoom and my audio. So this is casual. There's nothing for you to be afraid of. Come on board. I'd like to talk. I'd like to interact. I'd like to see what kind of questions you have about the topic, whether it's accountability, like we've been discussing for the last 5 weeks, or anything else in the book, or anything else that's going on in your world, personal and professional growth. Come on board, ask me a question. Let's see if I can do something valuable. Otherwise, I hope that you think that it's valuable just to tune in and watch me read the tip, discuss the tip, review previous tips in the section. And now I'm going to preview next week. Oh, baby, am I excited about this. Next week, we have a very special guest. Da-da-da-da-da. Are you ready? There it is. That's the promo.
Wow.
Her name is Kim Peterson. Inside, outside, and from maybe 1,000-mile radius, one of the most beautiful people on the planet. Beauty surrounds her. And what her job is about making you more confident, helping you figure out your voice, your swagger, your confidence, your mindset. And she's a trained stylist, from the science of shape, color, tone, pigmentation, design, on and on and on. And she's emerged over the years into a speaker, trainer, coach, and just one of the most fantastic people on the planet. I cannot wait for her energy to grace our channels. And there she is, Kim Peterson, founder of Uniquely Savvy, one of 425, the area code Seattle, one of Seattle Magazine's 425 Magazine's Women to Watch, a true advocate for all creatures, human and canine alike. She volunteers to do therapy for dogs. And I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on. I couldn't be more pleased to share with you that this coming Sunday night, my special guest is Kim Peterson of Uniquely Savvy, personal brand stylist and confidence coach, speaker trainer, and just all around superstar in my world. And somebody I've been friends with for over a decade and will be till the day I die and then some. So please make your plans to join us this coming Sunday night at 8 p.m. where Kim Peterson will be my special guest. Charlie, last call. Any comments, questions, anything before we sign off tonight on Get a Clue in 52?
I'm good, Coach Jeff. Thank you very much again, as always. And it's always good hanging out with you.
Okay.
I keep looking at the time. I've got a meeting to prepare for. Yeah, and the thing. No, it's I've still got a few minutes to go.
This isn't Monday morning for you. It's like Friday morning for you, or Thursday morning.
Thursday morning.
And, Well, listen. Mwah. With a kiss. Mwah. All right. We love you, Charlie. Thanks for coming in every week. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
And you too, Coach Jeff.
Always. All right. Good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Bless you. Have a good week.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.